ladies and gentlemen, it is our duty and obligation and very great honor to make the following announcement and decree. On this day, the 20th day of August, 2020. So I think that's self-explanatory. Yeah, it is now confirmed formally on and for the record of this day, the 20th day of August, 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact that there is a lasting, tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default.
I need to explain that the decree, okay? Everything I do, or everything I did inside the affidavit, and everything I do in the securitized liens, I use an exact specific language, and I would never, ever, ever use the word tacit, and I would never, ever use the word royal by assent. But I wrote that decree because I'm sending it out to people who are common law, Magna Carta, freeman on the land, with who tacit agreement through acquiescence. This is the language that they use, and it doesn't matter that the decree is in that language, because it's just a decree. It's not part of the affidavit. It's to make the affidavit public. So, you know, there's a reason why I do everything, and I feel I need to explain that.
Can you explain what that means about a lasting, tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default?
Right, all the acts and statutes in the UK are deemed to have been given royal assent. You know, otherwise they're not acts and statutes, because the government can't create acts and statutes. They are given royal assent.
Okay.
You know, but it's all bullshit. So I actually use that concept because that's what the context that people understand.
Yeah.
You know, that the acts and statutes are given royal assent. Well, this affidavit is given royal assent because, hey, the Queen's not rejected it. The Queen doesn't even know it exists.
All right. Oh, that's good. That makes sense.
And the Queen doesn't give royal assent to jack shit. You know, the head office, the cabinet in Westminster, they make up all their shit along as they go along. People believe that it's given royal assent. You know, so I'm using people's beliefs to add credibility to a declaration which is not part of the affidavit. I'm using psychology, in other words.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And there has never been any such thing as law, but only the presumption of law, where a presumption is nothing of material substance, and any presumption can be dismissed by a formal challenge. It is now confirmed formally on and for the record as of this day, the 20th day of August 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact that there is a lasting, tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default, that Parliament does not reign supreme, and that any notion of government has no legitimacy without the material evidence that the governed have given their consent, and there cannot be any government for one that cannot exist in isolation without the other. Also, that any action taken by way of an act, also that any action taken by way of an act or statute of Parliament is and always has been a criminal offence of fraud and malfeasance in the office at the very least. Any action taken by way of act or statute is a criminal offence of fraud and malfeasance. So how is that the case?
Because the 7.5 billion people on the planet, or the 67.5 million people in the UK, have not agreed to be governed. There's no contracts. No one has signed the consent to be governed. But there is hundreds, if not thousands, of office cabinets and drawers full of signed legal consents for everyone that's been to the dentist or everyone that's been to the doctors. But no one has signed the consent of the governed agreeing to be governed. Doesn't exist. Yeah, this stuff will mess with your head because it's a direct opposite to what you've been led to believe or what you think you know. And that's what people have a problem with. unlearning the bullshit and the brainwashing is one of the hardest things that you'll ever do. You know, to take all that crap that you've been brainwashed with and put it in the bin. And these are the facts now, you know. These are the sanctioned and approved facts with royal assent.
It is now confirmed formally on and behalf of, for the record, as of this day, the 20th of August, 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of rebutted affidavit and statement of fact that there is a lasting tacit agreement, lasting tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default, that the office of the judiciary is nothing more than a sub-office of a commercial body, and the status and standing of any judge or magistrate currently on this land has no greater status or standing or authority than the manager of McDonald's. It is also formally recognised on and for the record that the state is a legal embodiment of an act of registration, which is of no material substance and therefore fraud by default, and that the interests of the state are the interests of the state alone, to the detriment of anybody and anything else, including its own officers of the state, that the actions of the state are now recognised as unconscionable and criminal fraternity capable of heinous crimes without measure. All right, David, did you want to say anything on that?
I did, but it's how am I going to put this into words? You know, the state is a company no different to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And you've got to therefore at that point, when we actually get into the affidavit, read them 7 pages by Shannon Cathutas, because it took him 7 pages to quantify the fact that a state is just a corporate entity. Well, what is a corporate entity? You've got an acts of registration. So, okay, if you want to start a company, let's start a hypothetical company right now. Let's call it the Bill and Ben Landscape Gardening Company Limited. Right. So that's the name of the company. I just made it up out of fresh air. There's no physical substance to it. You know, you can't touch it. It's an idea. And you write that down on a piece of paper as a company name. And that company name gets sent to well, in the UK, it's a company's registration office, registered as a company. So where is the physical company? How can you touch this company? It's still an act of registration of a name, which is a concept in the abstract. You can't touch this company because it doesn't exist. You can't physically get hold and touch the company. You know, the piece of paper is not the company. The company address is not the company because that predates the company. The company bank account is not the company. The company directors and the CEO are not the company. So how can you physically touch this company? It's not there. It has no physical substance to it. So something that has no physical substance to it, but is claimed to exist, that's fraud.
Yeah, right. Okay. It is now confirmed formally and for the record as of this day, the 20th day of August 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact, and that there is a lasting tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default, that any and all executable orders and documents must carry an affixed common seal which denotes point of origin, and that any and all excitable orders and documents must be signed by human hand in wet ink by a named authoritative living being who takes full responsibility for the content of that formal excitable order or document. Any deviation from this standing process where there is no affixed common seal or signature in wet ink by a living hand with the authority to do so will be recognized in perpetuity as a criminal offence. It is now formally confirmed formally and for the record of this day, the 20th day of August 2020, agreed by the state and Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact, and that there is a lasting tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default, that all imposed taxation and duty is always and has been not only a criminal offence, but it is also detrimental to all the people of this planet. That from this day forward and as of the 20th day of August 2020, and in perpetuity, the enforcement of all taxation and duty is recognized as an act of terrorism. Is there anything you want to say on that, David?
Well, yeah, like I was saying before about the tax upon the tax upon the tax, it all gets flushed down the black hole. You work, I've worked for 40 years. You work to get paid. You work to get that cash that you need to live. And the government steal 85% of your life and it gets flushed down the pan. You're stealing your life, that's genocide.
It is now confirmed formally on and for the record as of this day, the 20th day of August 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact that there is a lasting tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default that there is no such thing as money or commerce. Nobody gets paid or has been paid. Nobody has the capability to pay anybody for anything or item without money. All commercial instruments are nothing more than pieces of paper with marks on them. That there is value, that their value is only confidence and belief, where confidence and belief is recognized as being of no material substance. The continued use of these commercial instruments is for the feeble of mind who insist on living in a make-believe world of their own making. Capitalism will forever be recognized and in perpetuity as the exploitation of another for personal gain. This has always been an unconscionable and detrimental activity to the human race since Babylonian times.
Babylon, someone decided that gold and silver had a monetary value. Well, no, gold and silver is just a metal.
Yeah.
But prior to that, you know, all commerce was done in barter. I'm going to swap my 10 chickens for your pig. You know, barter is barter. You can't tax barter, but as soon as you institute by force, you know, the Babylonian force, the implementation of using commerce in money, then you can tax. You can tax it all. It's all about tax. Always has been. Stealing your cash, stealing your life.
It is now confirmed formally on and for the record as of this day, the 20th day of August 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact that there is a lasting tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default. There is no greater sanctuary than the human home, be this home a castle or a wood hut or a blanket on the ground. From this day forward, as of the 20th day of August 2020, let it be known that any transgression of this sanctuary, other than by invitation, that any transgression of this sanctuary is a recognized act of war and aggression. We have the right, by the very fact that we live, to protect our life and the life of our loved ones. Any transgression of this sanctuary can be met with equal or great force with impunity. This is the long-standing law and traditions of the land, so say we all.
It's not just your home. You know, you think of your home, your castle, whether it's your home, your castle, a blanket on the ground, or your tent. It's this. That is your home. Your body is your home.
It is now confirmed formally on and for the record as of this day, the 20th day of August 2020, agreed by the state and the Crown by way of unrebutted affidavit and statement of fact that there is a lasting tacit and binding agreement through acquiescence and royal assent by default, that the practice of election by way of a secret ballot is and always has been an abomination and a deception with no credibility or redeeming qualities. By the very fact this is a secret ballot, by any means of notarization or recording, renders the outcome obsolete by definition. That is a secret ballot. By the very fact there is not a recognized unelective or reverse process of election, and by the very fact that there is no such word to this effect in the recognized dictionaries, then this elective process by way of secret ballot is and always has been void ab initio.
Void ab initio, yeah. Void from the beginning.
Sorry?
Void from the beginning.
Okay.
I hate using the Latin, but people like it.
Have a nice day. And on for the record, bring out the town crier and let the bell ring. Let it be known across this planet that from this day, the 20th day of August 2020, that the satanic Roman Empire is no more. Let it be by decreed that this is the day and will always be the day in perpetuity when the days of austerity and tyranny end for all time to come. Let this day go down in history across the planet as a day of celebration for all time. So say we all. Let the celebrations begin. So say we all. No assured value, no liability, no errors and omissions accepted. All rights reserved.